So, hey guys, I'm Nakar, and in this episode, our guest is Ronnie. He lives in Vietnam, and he has an interesting story to share with us. Hey, Ronnie, how you doing, man?
How are you doing, sir? It's been a long time. We've been trying to connect for about what, 2 weeks or 3 weeks now. Every time we try, it just seems like we've been having like technical issues. I
Yeah,
don't know from either end.
that was a
Um,
long time coming. It was a long time coming, Ronnie.
all right, right. Yeah, I mean it's right now. I actually contacted one of my buddies who lives here in Vietnam just to make sure that I wasn't hallucinating from all the slowdown and everything because my phone is slow, my computer is slow. So I basically went ahead and I called, I texted him. I said, hey, are you having like slowdown issues with with your computer? He's like, yeah, man. He said even my super fast luxury. He said my super fast luxury internet is slow. So right now, everybody in the world is either quarantined or at home stuck somewhere, and they're just on the internet. So that's the reason why. It's basically the entire world right now is plugged in. There you go.
Ronnie, just tell me a little bit about your experience, how you got to Vietnam, and where you come from, and just what's your story? I'm so curious.
Well, my story is getting here to Vietnam. Was it wasn't planned. It kind of happened, one day. I woke up one day. I'm actually originally I'm from the Caribbean, which is Trinidad and Tobago, and then I actually, I'm a transplant American. So I went to America back when I was 13 with my father, and I grew up there. So pretty much I'm an American, because I grew up there. I grew up there from age 13 until I pretty much left. But I pretty much embodies, how can you say, embody American culture to a certain degree, but still very islander, in a lot of ways, and very open-minded to the rest of the world. So my time in America was just kind of, I feel like I've always been passing through. I remember when I was a boy, I always used to have this fantasy of traveling the world, going to Egypt, going to Italy, going to France, going to all these different countries. But I ended up in America, and I think for me, going to America was to build my foundation, because destiny and opportunity came together. Going to America was the opportunity. Destiny was still waiting for me. So basically, going to America and living there and growing up there allowed me to go to college, join the military. After that, get a great job in working in pharmaceuticals. Did a lot of great things. I mean, at one point, I was very American. When I say very American, meaning that I soaked up everything American like a sponge. I loved the American lifestyle, but I always knew in the back of my mind that the world was calling me. I was actually going to get out there and do stuff. So I end up one day, after so many relationships, I told myself, I say, you know what? I think I need a change. And that happened when I was about what? It's about like about 7 years ago. I told myself I needed a change, and that change came through a bad relationship a relationship that ended badly. And I just say, no, I need a change. I keep running into the same kind of women, and the door keeps revolving. It's not leading me out. I gotta find my way out.
You came from the island with your father. You went to
Right,
America. You started your new life there. You were still
right,
young, so you just absorbed, because at that age you kind of absorb everything, and you kind of totally absorb that American lifestyle. You went
right.
on to go to college, then you entered the military. So now you really embody America, because that's really joining the American military. It's kind of like a really American thing to do. Like it's like the most
Yeah,
American thing you can do.
right,
And
right.
then your life goes on. You eventually get a cool job in pharmaceutical. So at this point, I'm guessing you're doing well.
Right,
And
doing well.
uh,
I'd had, doing well, driving a nice car, all that, doing all that cool stuff. I mean, I mean, like I said, I really enjoyed the American life for all the things it gave me, because I think that's what it is. A lot of people from around the world who never grew up in America or never been to America, they see what they see on TV, which is what America does very well. It shows the things. It doesn't really show the people. It shows the things you can have, which is the nice car, the cool job, you know, but they don't know how cool that job. The job is cool. It sounds cool, but it's stressful because you got to put a lot of yourself into it in order to make something of it. Because if you don't, you know, like we say in America, hey, you know, Monday to Friday, you know, I'm just a slave. I'm a slave to the man. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. You know, your life is pretty much, you know, drain, grind, and then you have that open window to go enjoy maybe that one day you may have off, or that maybe the 2 days you may have off. You know, because I mean, like all of my friends back in America will say, hey, man, you know, it's work or it's work or be on the street. Because if you don't work, you know, you have no money to eat. You know what I mean? So basically, that's the grind. It's a grind session. But what comes out of the grind is we're not really taught how to really manage our money very well. We're taught, hey, you making good money, go buy yourself the new Mercedes. You know, you're making good money, go buy yourself the cool clothes and all that stuff. So now all of a sudden you have the cool clothes, you have the car, you may have the girlfriend to go along with it, and you kind of feel like you're living the life, but really and truly you're not living the life. You're pretty much going through the motions like everyone else, which is
so you're pretty much stuck. You felt like, from what I understand, you were pretty much stuck in this cycle that just working, making money, buying the cool stuff, and then where is the fulfillment? Like, am I really fulfilled in this life?
Exactly. There's no fulfillment.
Yeah,
you know, you're right. You hit it on the head. There's no fulfillment. It's just things. And the next thing you know, like most Americans are, 90% of Americans are in debt. I mean, I'm not even making that number up. That's actually true. 90% of Americans are in debt because of credit cards, because of opulence, because of things, you know what I mean? Because we have so many things. You got the big house that you can't even afford, and then you got the car that's way above your budget, and then you have the maybe if this is a family, then you have the kids need to go to college. So you have a very, very stressful life, and most Americans, that's the cycle of life. And that's why so few of them leave to travel the world, and we're stuck in, well, hey, you know, I don't need to go anywhere. I live in America. But on the downside, they go home and they're like, my life sucks. You know,
but
because
what happened is you encountered this woman. You had basically a disastrous relationship, and you were into that loop, and you got at the point where, you know, you were kind of like, man, going day by day, and maybe you have the nice car and all that, but you're like, man, this is sucks. Is this really what like my life is going to be for the rest of my life? And then in the back of your mind, there is kind of this child dream of traveling and going to places. And then what happens, Ronnie, at this point?
So at this point, what you exactly said is what happened. As a child, we have this dream, right? As a child growing up from maybe like 7, 8, 9, 10, we see the world like a dream. We see the world, hey, when I get to be this age, I want to do all these cool stuff, right? I want to travel. I want to be the next Indiana Jones. I want to do all this stuff, right? But then we get older, we hit 21, 22, and then we get trapped in that cycle of work, pay bills, and then you die, right?
Yeah.
But I remember, because I'm a degree card carrying holder of psychology and sociology and philosophy and all that stuff. And I remember, even before I got my degree, I remember a lot of people would say, your best life is the life you live. The best life is a life you live in the dreams you had as a child. Because those are the dreams that you don't need to get paid for. Those are the dreams that will pay you back 100 times over compared to what you're doing. Because a lot of people grow up and then they become a doctor, they become this, but a lot of them don't really want to. It makes a lot of money. They just do it because it makes money and it pays the bills. But are they really doing what they really wanted to do? No,
I believe there's kind of that pressure at a certain age, like you are
right
there and you just want to make it, and you see everybody like that's making money and there's that job and you know, okay, say I'm gonna be a doctor, but it's kind of like being forced, like when you're a kid and
Right.
you give some antibiotics or something that's disgusting and you have to take it and it's not good for you and you don't really want it. And
Right.
it's
Right.
kind of like shoving something down your throat, you know, this profession, because
Right.
that child that it's there, you know, which wanted something totally different.
Right.
Then
I
you
mean,
get kind of
you,
this wall, you know, and you kind of get, how am I going to do this? Who do I
right.
actually know that's ever done this? And you get all of these, yeah.
Yeah. I always used to thought of history as being going into like archaeology and all that stuff, and I really do like archaeology. I dabbled a little bit in studying some archaeology. I never really did. I mean, never really got into it, but I did a little bit of it. Studied fossils and all that stuff growing up as a kid, and kind of got into all that cool stuff. So at one point, I even thought, say, how can I become an archaeologist? You know, because it was so cool. Because you travel the world and you're looking for cool stuff, right? That transcends history. I mean, all the way up to the present. But again, like we just explained, you grow up and then you have this, you get this slap in the face. Hey, wake up! You're not gonna do that. That doesn't make any money. That's a waste of time. Go be a doctor. Go be a lawyer. Go be, you know, a businessman or something like that. You know what I mean? But at the same time, for me, I always held on to my dream. And going into, now going into that dark phase after I was in a bad relationship, and I was now forced to sit back and realize what has been going on is that I was living everyone else's dream but my own. And then I remember telling my son, I have a 23-year-old son, and
All
I told him,
right.
I said, Darius, I said, what's that?
No, I'm
Yeah,
like, all
I
right,
have
I
a,
didn't know. I'm like, whoa,
yeah,
23 years old.
yeah, I actually have a 23-year-old and a 22-year-old. Yeah. Two boys from my ex-wife. But basically, I remember telling my son, I said, son, I'm gonna tell you something. Sometimes in life, you have to go back to the things you love as a child, and that will give you grounding in what you're gonna do next. And I remember I used to love kung fu movies back as a kid. Kung fu martial art movies, watching Bruce Lee, watching all the karate movies as a kid growing up, right? And I went to Netflix and I started Googling martial art films. And I
All
think I
right.
spent a week. Yeah, I
That
spent
sounds
a
cool. I used
week
to watch
watching.
them too, man. I used to
Oh
watch
yeah,
them.
everybody used to watch him. I mean, I don't know what they call. I mean, what they were called for you. I remember for me in my early days in America when I was there as a boy, I would watch. I think it was called Kung Fu Theater or something like that. You know, Kung Fu Theater. They had like maybe like a Sunday of like 3 or 4 or 5 Kung Fu movies, and I used to remember sitting there watching every single one, right? And then it led me to another thinking of what my dreams. I always wanted to travel to Asia. And that was the main reason why I always wanted to travel to Asia was Kung Fu. I'm the traveling monk, right? I wanted to be the monk that traveled the land, learning, helping people, understanding life, nature, all that cool stuff. And next thing you know, I'm Googling. I'm actually on the internet now, Googling Asia. That's how I went back to when I was a boy. I remember my dream. I remember I always wanted to go to Asia. I always wanted to see the Great Wall of China. I always wanted to go to Japan and go to the old samurai town. I think it's called, I forgot the name now. I forgot the name of the samurai town. It's one of the last remaining samurai towns in Japan. And I'm still yet, I will go see it one day. And I will go visit it and say I was there, you know what I mean? But I started Googling, and I talked to a couple of my Asian friends back in America about it. I was like, yeah, you know, they thought I was crazy because I've always been that really cool, that outside kid. I've always been from a boy growing up, I've always been the kid that stood outside of the group. I remember a friend who actually called me about a year ago, no, about 6 or 7 months ago, text me on Facebook Messenger. I said, hey, do you remember me? I'm like, who the heck is this? Is like 2 a.m, right? I received this text message and it's like, hey, this is a good friend from the old neighborhood. And I'm like, my good friend from the old neighborhood? Who the heck is this? This is like 2 a.m. in Vietnam, right? And then she said, oh, it's Kiva, because it's a girl. Oh, right, yeah, I remember Kiva. She used to actually be the girlfriend of my cousin. And she's like, hey, I see and I hear that you're in Asia or in Vietnam or something like that. So I'm like, oh, yeah, I am, you know. And then she says to me one thing that still sticks in my head 6 months later. She said, you know, I always knew you was gonna do something crazy like that because you have always been that kid. You have always, ever since we were back on the block, there were us and then there were you. You kind of stood apart from everybody because you were talking about philosophy at 16 and psychology and all that stuff and the world. And everybody thought you were like this spaced out kid, you know, talking about the heavens and the stars and all this astronomy stuff. And she was like, we looked at you as being kind of crazy, but who knows? She said, look at where it got. I said, well, I ended up doing a lot of cool stuff. And that's the thing about, I would tell any parent, if you have a kid that love all this stuff, encourage them to do it. Encourage them, because those are the dreams that you don't pay for. Those are the dreams that make you the person that you're going to be in the future. Because those are the things you're going to do with love, not doing it for money. You know, and that's the thing is that we try to push our kids, hey, you need to go make the money, and we don't push them to go live their dreams. See what I'm saying? Mm. So that's how I got here, is that I went back to when I was a boy, and I am now living that dream as a boy, and I'm still living the dream. You know, right now living in Vietnam, and not just that. I mean, aside from Googling and actually coming across, I actually did met my wife in the beginning, who was Vietnamese, which actually added more to more to me actually coming to Vietnam.
So how did you meet her? How did you meet her? Your wife?
Well, how do we meet anybody nowadays in the 21st century? Well, we go on a lot of these chat sites, right? Chat sites, dating sites. And I told my friend about it, you know, my friend who is Vietnamese, I told him, he said, yes, you should, if you want to go to Japan, because initially I wanted to go to Japan, and that's where I was actually going to go, was to Japan. I said, you know what, let me see what's going on in Japan. Maybe I'll join like a chat dating site, one of those like friendship groups. And I ended up joining a couple of them. And one of them, you know, I talked to a couple of women in Japan and stuff like that, and they were pretty cool. We actually had what we call a lot of Skype time, so we're Skyping visually, it was like video Skype with each other, and it was pretty cool. And then, but it's almost like step, and then there was that one, you know, that one person that stood out from the rest. And we kind of connected, and next thing you know, she was like, hey, you know, I really like your smile, great personality and all that stuff. Really would love to meet you. So when are you gonna come see me? I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, we just met, so I can't just plan a trip to Asia just like that. She said, well, don't worry about it. I'm leaving pretty soon, and I'll call you when I get home. So I'm like, okay. That's all that she told me. And next thing you know, like about 2 weeks later, she calls me. She said, hey, I just got home, and let's make a plan to meet each other. And I'm like, okay. So I said, so what are we thinking? Maybe like 6 months? She said, okay, I'll give you a year. I said, a year. I said, okay. I said, so where are you? She said, I'm in Vietnam. I'm like, Vietnam? I said, I thought you were in Japan. She said, no, I used to work. I worked in Japan, and my time is done because she said, I'm a Vietnamese who was on what you call work contract in Japan. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I guess I'm going to Vietnam now. You know, so that's how I ended up coming to Vietnam, was the fact that she was actually Vietnamese, but living in Japan on the same website. I ended up meeting her, and one thing led to the next. The next thing you know, here I am in Vietnam. And that's how the ball started rolling, and now I'm here, you know, and trying to live my life. But you know, what turned out to be a good thing ended up being a little bit sad not halfway through, like 5 years later, because I met her 5 years ago. So 5 years later on, now we're actually going through a divorce. It was more of the fact that we didn't spend enough time together while I was still living in America, because living in America, it only allowed me to come to Vietnam maybe for a month. So I spent a lot of time coming to, I spent every year doing that during the 4 years, I should say the first 4 years, I would come to Vietnam for about a month and a half, and spend some time here with her. And she had a 1-year-old daughter who I really love, who's really dear to my heart, and I really care for her. But I would spend a month and a half with her. We'd travel around Vietnam, we'd go to different locations and stuff. And it was great. But when I finally officially moved to Vietnam on that like the end of that 4th year, coming into the 5th year, like I said, because that was like the 5-year gap, we started living together, and we really came to find out that we really didn't match up. I mean, personality, talking and meeting someone over the internet is cool, but if you don't really spend quality time with them and really get to know them, you'll never know, And so for me, it was fun doing coming here for a month and a half and going on vacation, going to Dalat, or going to, Saigon, or coming here to Da Nang, or, just going different areas, going to Mo Hine. We go to all the different areas, but we spend like maybe 2-3 weeks, go to another place. We're traveling from bus to bus, from airplane to airplane, whatever, and having fun, right? But it never really gave us that time to really know each other. It was just fun. And then when we finally moved in on that, like I said, last year, when I finally came here, in beginning of last, when I finally came to Vietnam, and I said I was done with America, I put everything in the back. I quit my job. I retired. I retired from my pharmaceutical job. I sold everything I almost pretty much had in terms of my house. I brought all my clothes with me. I brought all my clothes with me here, so I wouldn't have to buy anything. And within 4 months after arriving in Vietnam, we were separated. That was like the sad part about it. We were separated because it really led to us really getting to know each other, because now we're living together.
So that's a whole different experience. Let's say when you meet her, you were, all excited, then you start coming to Vietnam, but you had kind of like, you're meeting someone on holiday versus now you're really living with this person and day-to-day life, and that kind of changed your experience, and you got to really know each other, and it just wasn't working out. And that was
it wasn't working out. It wasn't working out.
The downside of just coming there. And but I want to ask you a question. What did you do to, like, what type of jobs did you get in Vietnam? How did you just manage to make money, to earn a living? And how are people there, in general? And, how are Vietnamese people? How did you make a living? And, just what happens from there? How this
well, actually, to really be honest, from that point on, once she actually, when we decided to, we separated, and she went back to her hometown in down south in southern Vietnam. It left me on my own to pretty much figure things out. I didn't really speak the language enough to really understand things. So now I was forced to actually be here by myself, trying to understand things by myself. But all of a sudden, with my personality being the person who I am, and my knowledge of things, I found out that the Vietnamese people was the most loving and most welcoming people. I knew that in the beginning, but by just coming here from the time I came here, back and forth but it really sunk in with me when I started, when my wife left, once we separated. It really sunk, because it's like the neighborhood took me in. The neighborhood was like, hey, no wife. Like, my next door neighbor was like, no wife, huh? I was like, yeah. It was like, what happened? I was like, you know what? One thing I tell you about Vietnamese people, they know this stuff. They know this stuff. And the neighborhood was very kind to me in a lot of ways. They knew that my wife pretty much left. Not everybody, but my neighbors who pretty much was on my street. Okay, the neighbors on my street kind of noticed something different. They was just seeing me, they wasn't seeing her. So they was like, hey, where's your wife? Where's your wife? And I'm like, oh, well, no longer together. You know what I mean? But it's like, don't worry, no problem. Lots of Vietnamese women, you'll find a good one day, no problem, right? I'm like, so I laughed about that, and I was like, there's like, no problem. You find woman for you soon, don't worry. And I started meeting a lot of friends who, you know, was like, hey, let's go have a drink. I know the one thing, Vietnamese people can drink. And they'll drink you under the table if you're not a drinker. And believe me, they drank me under the table because I only had 2. They're having like 50, right? And I'm serious about that. They will drink literally 2 or 3 cases flat. And so I'm like, wow. And the guy is still standing and will be able to drive. I don't know how they manage it, but they do. But anyway, so, I mean, Vietnamese people are like the most loving and most welcoming people. And they really took me in. I really saw that after, you know, after my wife left. And I got to know the culture a lot more better. I started going out to different locations, whereas I was literally only foreigner there, and everyone else was Vietnamese, right? And people would just kind of like, hey, where are you from? Like, I'm from California. All of a sudden, you know, they're like, California. Oh, I have family in Texas. And we started having this conversation. Next thing you know, we're exchanging phone numbers. You know what I mean? And next thing you know, they're calling me up, hey, you want to go some coffee? And so on and so on. So that gave me the impression more and more that Vietnamese people are not what I heard about, because back in America, you would hear, oh yeah, you know, Asian people are very racist. They don't like people of color. You know what I mean? They don't like, you know, anybody black. They don't like this, they don't like that. And here I am proving a lot of people wrong.
That sounds a little bit ironic. I mean, when you're in America, I mean, how was your experience? Because you actually had a life previous to going to Vietnam in America, and how was it being you know, a man of color in America, and then just moving to Vietnam and just being another man of color, but in Asia this time? How was? Do you feel
Do
like?
you want to hear the irony of this whole thing? Yeah, the irony of this whole thing is that when I was in America, I always felt like an outsider, even though I was who I am. I always felt like I always had to do a little bit extra to show that I wasn't another man of color, you know, because there's this huge premise in the United States that, you know, well, if he's successful in life as a man of color or a black man, it's because he's a basketball player or he has some sort of sports in his background, right? Past that, you know, you have the whole, you know, they don't, it's on, I really don't want to think about it, because most of my friends were really, really cool. You know, I mean, my friends outside of being black were really, really cool. So, and it wasn't like all judgmental, but the premise, I should say, the overall premise of some Americans, or most Americans, I should say, is that, you know, you just have like another ignorant black man, you know what I mean? And so I literally had to transcend that premise and make it, when I met someone outside of my ethnicity, or I was talking to people outside my ethnicity, people, they always looked at me as being different. They was like, well, what makes you so different? And a lot of people say, oh, well, because you're from the Caribbean, you know what I mean? And they always added that, oh, well, you're not really black, you're not really American black, you're from the Caribbean. That's the reason why you're different. You know, some of my friends who were black didn't like that attitude, didn't like that perspective of, they will put me in a different category. It's like, you know, there's like, yeah, he's not really black. He's from the Caribbean, you know?
Oh,
but
so you kind of got this from a little bit from everybody, both from the people that did not look like you, but from the same black people, from the same American that were black. And now we are talking as a society as a whole, not on individual. I mean, individually you would find people that like your friends and, you know, all the people you know, they're like cool. But then you have like some people that like, whether they are black or white, they kind of, yeah, he's different.
They kind of give you that.
Kind of felt like, you know, do I really fit in, or maybe I have to work some extra, or prove. I'm always trying to prove something, and kind of like you're the outsider, and some type of social pressure.
Right. There's always that. There's that, and that's the one thing in America is the social media. Not social media. I should say. Hollywood / the news media always put a huge negativity when it comes to people outside of being white, and I really say that with actuality, in terms of, if you listen to the news in America, they always say there's a black man, there's a black gunman, you know what I mean, or there's a Hispanic gunman, but you never hear a white gunman, you know what I mean? You hear a white man carrying, you hear there's a white individual carrying a gun. You know, so it's almost like I'm like, okay, so what's the difference between saying, okay, a white gunman, but no, he's a black gunman, and he's a Hispanic or it's Hispanic, you know, gunman. I'm like, so it's like they always add that negative to your ethnicity. Whereas if you were white, you wouldn't get that negative. You would get the oh well, you know, he's just a white color. He's just committed white color crime. You know. Whereas you know, if it's a black man, you know, he's maybe he's a drug dealer. He's this. He's that. You know, he's not. I mean, they will even say they'll even put that negative. They wouldn't even put a negative on a white drug dealer and make it seem like, well, you know, they'll put it on a black guy. Well, yeah, you know, it's just another black man doing drugs kind of thing. So there's always a negative. So you always, even if you are successful, you check all the boxes. That's like myself in America, I checked all the boxes, went to school, good education, military, good background, all that good stuff. It always felt like you had to put an extra emphasis on on who you were to show that you weren't part of that group. So everyone else looked at you as being different. And plus, I guess for me, I had the background of coming from a different country. So I mean, so people kind of latched onto that too. And once they really got to know me, oh well, you know, the reason why you are who you are is because you are from a different country.
I heard I heard also, while following some American media news, I heard that American people as a society, they are easier to get a job or to advance in career. You will face less difficulty if you're like a black person coming from another country rather than a black American. They'll kind of discriminate positively if you're like from these different areas. Is that
right?
Is that like fake?
Yeah, that is true. That is true. If you are a person of African descent coming from another country, say England, Europe, wherever, if you're coming from a different country, it's almost like you're like there's Black American, and there's you, and then there's white, because the white is on top, right? And then there's Asian. Asians kind of fit in between that other and white. So if you're a black coming from another country, you know, there's that premise. Okay, well, he's not really one of them. You know, he's who he is. So we're going to give him a chance quicker than the other guy. And I remember a lot of my, not a lot, but I remember a couple of my friends will say to me, how come you got that job? You know what I mean, kind of thing, or wow, you know, I never knew. Try to get me in there, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that was like, for me, at one point, it made me feel a little off. Because here I am, maybe that one person out of many.
I want to add one thing. If you were seen on the street, because when people know you, they'll change their perception of you. That's happened right. As soon as you open your mouth, as soon as you're having a conversation. I mean, that often happens. Right. But if they'll see you down the street in America, just driving your car or just performing regular activity, and people don't know you, you'd simply be viewed as just like anyone else that it's
right,
your color in your skin. So you face that same discrimination unless you have some right. sort of relationship with the person you are interacting with, and he knows you, and they'll say, okay, it's Ronnie, and we know
right.
him.
Well, I'm gonna tell you what. I've never really told anybody this, but I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna tell you this. Living in America as a person of color, I wasn't stupid either. I knew how to get around certain things, knowing what's the premise. The premise is, if you see a man of color driving a nice car, how did he get that, right? They give you that. And you see, let's just say a police officer drives by. First thing they think, oh, well, nice car, black guy driving that car. Wow, wonder. But for me, what I did, I took away the premise. I took away the thought of, well, I don't know. I might need to pull him over to check his paperwork, right? I was in the military, so what I did, I had in the back of my car, because 9 times out of 10 the police are behind you. Back in my car, I had the United States military. Sure enough, most police officers were in the military. You know. or they support the military in a huge way. So in the back of my car, I had United States military, my rank and all that stuff. On my license plate, I had, you know, I'll have something, you know, kind of signifying, you know, equality for all, you know, one love and all that stuff. So they were like, oh, so, you know, sometimes the police officers would drive by me, be like, yo, they'll give me like that hands up, like, you know, good job, you know what I mean? Military. Well, some of them will even say, hey, what branch were you in? You know, and we will have that conversation. So it went from them seeing my car, and all of a sudden, because they saw the military logos and all that stuff in the back of my car, they thought okay, well, okay, he's on the up and up. He's not one of those guys. You know, I mean, if we're gonna stop it, we're gonna stop him to have that conversation. You know, so like I said, those was one of the things I did to take away that stigma. Two, I also was in college, so I actually had my college in the back of my car too. Like, you know, I have it's your alma mater. I had my alma mater signature for my college in the back of my car. So if I'm driving, a lot of people will also see, hey, I went to this particular college or university as well. So sometimes I can say you have to take away that premise and create your own premise for yourself, and that's what I did. I've gotten stopped by police officers before. I remember I got stopped by a police officer. It was late at night. I was driving home, and a police officer stopped me, and he said, "Hey, you know," he said, "like driver's license and information, please." And I said, "Sure." I said, but I asked him. I said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "No disrespect, but why did you stop me?" "Oh, well, I've never seen you before." I said, "What do you mean never seen me before?" I said, I live on this street. I live 2 blocks right down the street. And he said, "Okay, well, I've never seen this car before." I said, "Okay." I said, that doesn't make any sense. I said, "But let me let you know something. I am a student of psychology and sociology. I do know what most police officers do stop and look for." I said, "Especially, I'm a man of color driving at night a nice car." So, and then he says to me, "You know what? See you later." That's what he said to me. I swear to God, he didn't even take my license after that. He said, "Well, I'll see you later." You know, so
you kind of found a way to navigate this, and after all, it was okay. You did not individually feel all of that pressure. But in comparison, in Vietnam, how do you feel?
In comparison in Vietnam, I have to be honest, I feel more welcome here, and I feel part of the community here in Vietnam, even though I'm a man of color. And that's the funniest thing. I've been asking myself that question for the longest, and I'm like, wow. I came to Vietnam and I just fit right in, and it's like I felt like I came home, just to be honest. I felt like I came home. My girlfriend asked me, she says to me, she said, "You come to Vietnam and everybody loves you, everybody likes you. You're just like guy." Right? She said, "Well, what are you Vietnam but live America?" And she just had a weird way of putting it. And I'm like, hey, I said some people are just embody a personality that other people like. And I said, for me coming to Vietnam, it felt right. In my soul, in my heart, in my brain, in my body, it just felt right. I mean, my next door neighbors are great. I live in a great neighborhood. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I first moved here, there were people, but it didn't look with any kind of racist look in their eyes. It was more like curious, like, who is that guy? And the first premise, most people of Asian culture will look at the person of color and see, oh, he's from Africa. Not every single one of them, I should say, but most of them will think, okay, he's from Africa, until they ask you, hey, where are you from? In their very broken English, they'll say, where are you from? And I said I told a couple people from America, and they're like, oh, America. So they said America, like, well, America, hey, I have a cousin in America, kind of thing, you know what I mean? So until you start, you just have to put yourself there. And I've never had that sense of, oh, well, that person is racist towards me. And even when I thought about it, even when I looked, because of the look, it crept into my mind. I tell myself, it's not because of that. It's because I'm different. I'm living in a homogenous society, which 99.9% of the people are of Vietnamese descent. Here I am, part of the 1% of expats, you know, and foreigners coming to Vietnam. So we're all I am going to stick out like a sore thumb, especially being a person of color. So you cannot take a negative from elsewhere and bring it into a new country and say, well, the reason why they're looking at me funny is because I'm black. No, you can't do that, because now you have to think with actual common sense, right? You are in a homogenous society where the language, the first thing, the language is.
So now you have kind of determined that if it's just real or it's like in your mind. So sometimes it's like in your own mind you have this idea that it's racism, but then you have kind of to say, well, let's be rational. Let's look at it for what it is. It's, I mean, a new country. I look totally different. You know, these people probably they have never seen someone that looks like me, so they're just curious. They just want to know like what's going on.
Right. You know, and to be honest, like I said, you know, being here has opened my world up so much, and I owe a lot of it to how I got here, because, you know, some people say to me, well, how did I said, well, first off, it came from my love of when I was a boy, I always wanted to come to Asia. And then they say, well, Vietnam, why Vietnam? You know, Vietnam just happened to be because of who I met at the point in time that directed me to Vietnam, because Vietnam was never on my radar. It was never part of a place I wanted. I had Vietnamese friends back in America, and they hate Vietnam. They're like, well, not all of them, I should say. A good majority of them hate Vietnam, but very few that knew me, I knew I was moving to Vietnam, said to me, great thing you're doing. They said, go to Vietnam and learn everything you can. They said, go to Vietnam and become part of the culture. Go to Vietnam and take everything you have learned here in America and teach it to the people. He said, because some of the people want to come here and may never get to come here. He said, but you have what they want. Give it to them. Show them. Teach them. You know, give the knowledge you have earned here in America to them. And that's what I do in terms of, you asked what I do. I mean, passively, actually, when I say passive, my passive income is basically teaching, and I do freelance work where I work with some charities and stuff like that. With this one agency called Common Waters. Common Waters Charitable Association is who I work with here in Vietnam. And when they put on all these events, I actually go to all of them. I'm part of the organizing group. I do a lot of the photos, and I do a lot of their editing work in terms of film. I will actually film some of the, sometimes people will film and I will just take pictures, and most of the time, sometimes I will take the pictures and film, but we're all part of the group. And it's one of the greatest things I've done since I've been here, which is get into a lot of the charity stuff. I've gotten to go to so many different places because of that charity group. I've gotten to see ethnicity, because a lot of people don't know that Vietnam has 54 to 56 different ethnic groups, but different dialects, but the main dialect being...
That's interesting, 54 ethnic
yes,
groups.
Vietnam,
Whoa.
Yeah, Vietnam has the largest diverse ethnic group in the world. A lot of people don't know that. Seriously. You know, they have the largest diverse ethnic group in the world. But the one common language is Viet, and that's what a lot of people speak, you know, is Viet Thanh, you know what I mean? But if you go to some areas and you start speaking to another person, you know, but if, let's say, you know, some Vietnamese, and I go up to, let's say, Quang Nai or Quang Nam or Dak Lak, and then I meet another person, and they call them ethnic minorities, and I start speaking to an ethnic minority up in Quang Nam, they'll like look at me like they have no idea what I'm talking about, because they speak Vietnamese, but they will refer back to the actual, as I said, they will refer back to the actual
dialect.
That's it. Because like I said, all those ethnic groups have their own language.
So they kind of mix it up, and it becomes another language, and you know, you'll be like, yeah, what's going on? I barely know the words, and now you're coming up with all this. Slow down.
Exactly, you know, but the one thing I do not like in terms of what Vietnam says, I can't blame them for how they say it. If they're not like there's what do you call it? There's the two main, well, the main group is Viet. They're the lighter skin, very fair Vietnamese.
Okay.
Those are the ones that's mixed with Chinese. I forgot, it's not Viet Q, it's Viet ay ay ay. Oh my God. Anyway, there's a main group that's the one that everyone sees on throughout the world, on TV, everywhere. Those are the ethnic group Vietnamese people see. And those are the much fairer skinned Vietnamese, right?
So those are the
But
dominant,
there
let's
are
say
a
the
lot of darker
dominant Vietnamese at the moment, like the light-skinned Vietnamese, the world sees. Okay.
Yeah, the light-skinned Vietnamese is what more people are very common with throughout the world. But they're not used to seeing darker Vietnamese. And since I've been here, I was like, whoa, they got some guys that's darker than me. I'm like, wow, which was actually really funny. But they're part of the Vietnam diaspora groups of people. So when you go up to the mountainsides like Quang Nam, Dak Lak, and all those places, they will say ethnic Vietnamese, or they call them minorities, because they're not in the majority meaning they're not like part of that, that lighter group who are majority of the holders of jobs and all that stuff. They're the ethnic, they call them ethnic minority Vietnamese. And I asked one of my friends, I said, why do they call them ethnic minorities? I said, minority means less than. You do know that, right? He's like, well, they've always called them ethnic minorities. And I was like, well, I said, educationally, if you call a person a minority, you actually call them less than, because a minority means less than. I said, I really don't like the term ethnic minority, but
apart from this, do you feel like they're treated like everyone else, to be fair, or you feel there is a certain detachment between?
When you say treat like everyone else, meaning
these Vietnamese that have a skin color that's slightly different, or that come from different regions of Vietnam, incorporated in the society just like everyone else, or do you feel like they're
actually
kind of, overlooked?
Actually, I am treated like everyone else.
No, I'm not talking about you. Not about you, Ronnie. I'm talking about these ethnic minority Vietnamese. Are they?
Oh, okay.
Like everyone else, or do you feel like they're kind of a little bit on the side?
I think they're on the side, depending on who they are. If a lot of them, the older generation ethnic minority Vietnamese, they will scrape and scrape and save as much money as they can for the younger generation, so they can go to the cities and get an education, a good job, and so on and so on. And they kind of move away from the mountainsides, or they move away from the city villages into the city areas and do a lot better, because some of them will go to Saigon. But the thing is, I think, even though, I mean, from what I've seen, a lot more of them are a little bit poorer, in terms of, compared to the other Vietnamese living more in the city areas. But from what I was told, they don't all get treated the same. I mean, I even heard, I don't know how true it is. I even heard at one point, almost 30 years ago, a lot of them living up in the mountainsides barely had clothes. Like they had like one pair of shirt, one pair of pants, one pair of shoes. That's all they had for like months on end, until someone came and donated or gave them clothes and stuff. So and I actually do have a video. I have my first few videos, charity videos, on my YouTube channel, is about me actually going up to the mountainsides and doing charity work up there. So if anyone wants to check it out, they can go check that out. But it does show what they do look like.
Let's talk a little bit, since you move around Vietnam, how is nature over there? Like the landscape and the mountain and all these people you meet, how are they? Are they just welcoming, or how are just all these people in these different areas of Vietnam? How is the feeling?
To be honest, for me, I have met so many people, and everyone has been very open to me, very welcoming. I mean, the mountainsides are beautiful. Vietnam is very, very beautiful, a very beautiful country. A lot of lush, dense forestry that's just The landscape is beautiful. I mean, all the foods that I actually had in the Caribbean, like mangoes and avocados and bananas, everything is in abundance here. It's the same. Just Vietnam is a very tropical. It is a tropical country, just like the Caribbean. So that part of the Caribbean side of me fits so well here. That's what also has given me that foothold of, wow, I feel like I'm kind of back in the Caribbean because of all of the different foods and stuff that they have here. Plus, the culture of the people are almost the same. They love to. I mean, it's a hot climate in certain areas. Like where I'm at is temperate. Temperate meaning it goes from cold, a little bit cooler to a little bit hotter to really hot, and then we have rain. But here where I'm at in Da Nang, you know, and plus some parts of Vietnam, I mean other parts of Vietnam too, people will come out and they'll call their next door neighbor and say, hey, bring some beer, bring some chicken, let's get together and have a cook. So all of a sudden you have like two or three houses getting together and they're cooking food on the street, got a barbecue going, and they're like, hey, come get some food, you know what I mean, kind of thing. And I've been very fortunate to be part of that, where at first I was kind of timid to show up. I mean, to actually go to, but then my next door neighbor said, hey, come here, come sit down, eat some food. I'm like, okay. So I go out there and I sit down. Next thing you know, we're having a big old conversation with everybody, and they're like, hey, where are you from? I'm from America. Okay, good. You want a beer? You know, I mean, have 2 beers, you know, kind of thing. But that's this Vietnam. It's a very beautiful country. The people are very welcoming, lush, dense. It depends on how far up you go in terms of where I went up in Quang Nam. The forestry is really dense, but beautiful. It's like lush landscape, green as far as the eye can see. Great views. The further up you go, I mean, one point I was so high up, I literally looked down and I saw everything look like jigsaw puzzles, because that's how high up I was in terms of a mountain. I was high up into the mountainside, looking down into the city area, but it didn't look like a city. It looked more like blocks from a distance, you know, and it was just beautiful. So that's one thing about Vietnam. You can go from city to countryside to beachside real quick, you know, and the people that you meet in the city are different from the people you meet in the countryside, because the city people, you know, they have their own particular way. But once you get into the countrysides, it's like going back into 50 years ago in Vietnam, or even maybe 100 years ago, because you see a little shack on a little hillside, and you're like, someone actually lived there? And I'm like, wow, yeah, someone actually lived there. And that's the beauty about Vietnam, because it just transcends from city life to country life. But the country life that you're going to see is not like how you would think about it. Okay, the countryside of Italy or the countryside of America. People are still living in modern houses, right? But the countryside of Vietnam is like 100 years ago in the countryside of America, you know? So you have this great change from the time you leave the city, you know, and
cities are different also. I mean, it's a different.
Oh yes.
It's totally also. I believe like the feeling and the interaction, it must be different.
Yeah, the cities are pretty. I should say the cities. Although you are in Vietnam, the cities are kind of very. I could say westernized in some ways, but it's still Vietnam, because, you know, everyone speaks Vietnamese and they have their own pretty much way of dealing with things. But of course, if you have, you know, elevators in America, you're gonna have elevators in the cities here too. So you do have what you call the city life, kind of slash urban suburban life around the city. It's kind of western, slightly, I should say, some of the urban life, depending on the area, you have a little bit more of the I should say the diverse Vietnamese ethnicity, where you can tell, okay, that's a Vietnamese house. That's like a full-on 100% Vietnamese house. You walk in there, it's Vietnam. Then you go into another part of town where you can see they're all Vietnamese living in that house, but you walk into that house and it's very modern, it's very American, very the bathrooms, the way everything looks is very American, right? Or Western, I should say. So therefore, you know, everything could take shape and change, depends on where you are. You know, depends on where you are. I mean,
you experience more of the real Vietnam in the rural areas. When you're out of the cities, that's where the real Vietnam kind of.
Oh yeah, yeah. The real Vietnam is once you hit the countrysides, you're gonna see the real Vietnam. Like literally, like I said, going back almost 100 years ago. They got the outside bathrooms. When I say outside bathrooms, a hole in the ground and a shed, kind of thing. You know, when I went into the countrysides, and I wouldn't even lie, when I went into the countrysides, as I need to use the bathroom, and someone said, "Oh yeah, the bathroom is over there," and I go to the bathroom, I'm like, I don't think so. I'll wait till I get to a real bathroom, you know. But it's like one of those things that hits your brain, you know, because you're so used to something and for so long, and all of a sudden now you're faced with a hole in the ground and a bucket of water to wash it away, and you're like, bucket of water, hole in the ground. And you're kind of like doing the jigsaw dance in your mind of, should I not? Who cares? It's an experience. You know, I think I've tried it once, so I can't remember where, but yeah, once you hit the countryside, things change. You just got to tell yourself, hey, if you got to go use a bathroom in the countryside, and even now, I know this, if I have to go to the countryside again, I already know. I will take certain things with me, like maybe hand wipes and stuff like that, you know, because, you know, things are a little bit different. It's not as clean, but it's definitely a different lifestyle, but some of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. And I remember I met this lady on a countryside road. Literally, she's like the oldest person carrying a baby on her back, and carrying a big, big bucket of stuff, because I don't know if she was going to sell something or what. And I felt really kind of taken aback by the whole thing. And I stopped her and I gave her some money. I said, "Ma'am, you know, I didn't know where she was going and nothing like that." I said, "Ma'am, you know, I'd like for you to have this." I stopped and I whipped out my wallet. I gave her, I think like $20 US, which is a lot of money here. I gave her 500, I think it was 500 Vietnam dong, which is is basically, yeah, it's about $20, $20 or $25, just about, you know. And I just said, wow, you know.
And Ronnie, tell me, like, are there, because I heard there's a lot of opportunities down there for entrepreneurs and opening businesses. You know, what's going on in the scene, the financial scene, economic scene, for people who are planning to open a business, or, you know, can you build a business like on a low budget, and are there opportunities over there? And,
well, overall, Vietnam is a developing country, and in terms of developing country, tons of opportunities are everywhere. You are your best opportunity. Whatever idea you have in your mind that you wanted to do back in England or in America, and you say, okay, well, I can't do it because it'll take me at least $200,000-300,000, maybe close to $500,000 to start this business. Here in Vietnam, it'll take me maybe $500 to start that business. All you need is the quick contacts. Get yourself a license. I think a license is going to cost you maybe like $20-30. And there you go. As long as you can start somewhere from in your house, that's it. That's all it takes. It's a little bit of brain cells and want. When I say want, because I can't say need, want, because need changes. So you have to want to say to yourself, I'm going to succeed, and I want to succeed, and I want to start a business, and this is what I'm going to do. And in Vietnam, that's 100% possible in terms of what you can do. You can start a internet business. You can start internet marketing. You can start any kind of skill that's needed. It will definitely work here in Vietnam. I mean, in terms of a shop, in terms of anything, all you need is maybe about $500 to $1,000 to start, and that's it. Just to really be honest, for most people, that's what I've heard. $500 to $1,000 will get you started. If you want to actually rent a place, well, that could take a little bit of money, but it could take, I would say, no more than $5,000 just to get started. If you want to rent an actual shop, like say for instance, you want to rent a shop in a particular building, it's gonna cost. I have a friend right now. She pays $300 a month rent on a property, and she owns a beauty salon, and that's what she pays every month. It's just $300 on that. It's a small place, but it's big enough for 5 people to sit and get their hair done, get their nails done, get their toes done, whatever, and that's it. So that's all it takes. And even a lot of people can do it out of their houses here, because Vietnam, another thing about Vietnam, most of the Vietnamese own their own property and homes, as opposed to most Westerners that don't. So as long as you can save enough money here, I think at least about $100,000, you can own your own home here, easily. And once you own your own home, you get yourself maybe one of those 2 or 3 story homes. And at the bottom floor, you have so much room. So a lot of people live on the first 2 floors up, and then they will have like a shop at the bottom. So the shop will pretty much, they don't have to pay for rent after that, because it's their own property, and they start their own businesses out of their homes.
Well, I have a feeling that, like, I don't know why this is like Vietnam and Asia, it's like very entrepreneurial people. Like, people are just doing so many things and starting so many little businesses, and it's very, you know, they have a lot of initiative. Is that true, or is that like just my impression?
Yeah, there's a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, entrepreneurship is everywhere in this. Even if they're making $50 a day, it's still a blessing to see that. You'll see literally a 50 or 60-year-old woman on the side of the street selling something. You know, like, you don't see that in America. You don't see, they're collecting Social Security already at that age, right? But in Vietnam, there's this little lady, and she has a shop set up selling dumplings, or selling cooking food, or, you know, you walk down about 10 feet more down the street, there's a guy selling banh mi's. You know, yes, he has a little banh mi stand set up. Yeah, you go up, they actually got guys on bicycles, literally pedaling bikes, and not a motorbike. They have some guys on bicycles will ride around from neighborhood to neighborhood selling I think it's bun bar, which is like a bread with some meat with beef in it, and it's hot, and they actually have this rigged to the back of their bicycle, right? It's rigged to the back of it, and there's a hot pot on the back of it too, with a steamer that keeps everything nice and hot. So they drive around the neighborhoods selling this hot bread, and people buy it because it's cheap. I mean, you could go to the store and spend, you could go to like the actual name brand store and spend maybe, let's say, $3 for the same item, or you could go spend 50 cents at that guy on his bicycle. You know, so that's the
how it's food. I have one more interesting. How it's food there? I mean,
the food is awesome. The food is awesome. Although it takes you have to get used to the cultural difference in terms of food. The food is great. There are some things I don't like still, but most things I do like. Vietnamese food is awesome. I mean, hands down, it's awesome. I have eaten my share of Vietnamese food. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I eat, so I've eaten so much of it, I tend to kind of go back and eat some Western food, but I always now eat. As of this year, I told myself I'm full on going Vietnamese food day in and day out, because it's great. It costs much less than eating at a Western restaurant. And so that's what I've been doing. I mean, banh mi is one of the maybe the go-to meals around here. Banh mi, kum ga, kum ka,
And
bansel.
these are like healthy meals that are actually
Yeah, they're
good.
all healthy meals. They're all healthy meals. I see, but that's the thing about Vietnam too. A lot of Westerners, even me myself, when I first came, I didn't understand, was because food is everywhere. From morning till night, food is everywhere. A hamburger is kind of like what is a hamburger kind of thing, right? For me, I actually, when I first got here, I first started living here, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I want eggs, I want like my bacon, and I want my, I want my stuff, my what I'm used to. And next thing you know, at that point in time, my wife, she was cooking, she's doing pho and she's doing all this stuff. I'm like, that is food. We don't eat that. That's food. But then you come to realize that's morning breakfast here. Pho, kum ga, kum chien, kum ka, bansel, all that stuff is morning breakfast, and and everything is hot, freshly cooked and hot and ready to go, right? And that's throughout the day. And then on top of it, you had the coffee.
So
Vietnam,
breakfast is a hot breakfast.
breakfast is a hot breakfast.
Oh.
It's a hot breakfast, yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Just wow.
Breakfast is a hot breakfast every morning. It's not, I mean, yeah, you do have an egg with it, but the way they do eggs here is they boil an egg. And I came to hear that the reason why they always put a boiled egg with your food is because back in the day, it was known to give you the protein. So that's how people got protein, was through having an egg. So basically, if you didn't have fish or you didn't have like meats and stuff, you always had that egg. Because egg you get an egg anywhere from a chicken, right? Except for a rooster. But basically, there's always an egg with your dish.
So Ronnie, if someone like from Europe or from Italy or like me were to come down there, you believe that they can find job and they can get it going if they have some sort of skill or some sort of idea.
Yeah. The big skills here in Vietnam, first and foremost, is teaching. Teaching skills go a long way here. Engineering and anything dealing with business marketing and nursing. Yes, nursing being one of those other jobs too. Anything, mostly everything else are, I should say, it's very entrepreneurial, and or anything in business.
So for a young person coming there with some idea or wanting to start a business or be good at business, they can easily get some, maybe build products and get it going with a low budget, maybe find some, partnership, who knows? But it offers opportunities if you have something.
The opportunity is there. The opportunity there. I mean, there have been a lot of, I've actually had the opportunity of meeting a few younger people from Europe who actually came here. And they started their business pretty much. They was like, hey, I left Amsterdam, I left Germany or wherever, I'm here, and I brought a little bit of money with me, and this is what I'm doing now. So yeah, that's one thing I could say. Coming from a Western culture with our knowledge and education and background gives us a huge step above most of the Vietnamese here. The only thing that holds us back is the fact that we cannot own certain things. We cannot own property. We cannot own maybe like a car and all that. We can buy a car, but we can't own certain things. We can own a house. I mean, not a house. We can own an apartment condo. Like a condo is not considered a house. It's considered part of a building. So you can own that condo in that building, and you can actually turn around and sell it. But in terms of a house, the only way you could get around owning a house is marrying an actual Vietnamese citizen and living here. Like I can actually own a house, but it would be kind of like one of those 50-50 things through my wife. And she will have to sign as the main, she will be the main even though I am the one with the money, paying for everything, she will be considered the main co-signer of the house.
So
in terms of
say
a house.
if you want to really get started there, you would have to get a partner, either a business partner or get married, because that opens a lot of doors. Having Vietnamese
exactly
contact down there, that's real that opens a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, that's 100% true. If you wanna actually gain more footing within the Vietnamese community, you have to get a partner, a business partner, or you to get married. And that's going to open all the other doors for you that you can't open by yourself, and that's it. So I mean, one thing I could say, even though my soon-to-be ex-wife and I are not together anymore, one thing I could actually say, like I always tell anybody, because of her I have a lot more opportunities. And I mean, even though we didn't work out, my life is not working out here in terms of being married to her and coming and taking the chance and opportunity to come here. Because sometimes a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of positivity, even though there's sometimes something bad or negativity. You just gotta stand your ground and think for a moment and look at the future. And some people did ask me, oh, so once you get divorced, are you going back home? I'm like, no, I'm not going back home. I'm staying here in Vietnam. I'm making this, recently I was just asked if I was actually going to plant roots here. And I said, yes, I am going to plant roots here. And I'm actually planning on building a life here. And I don't plan on going anywhere. If I do, all I'm doing
what
is
about
actually,
your language? Are you working on your language? Can you speak Vietnamese? How is your
oh
Vietnamese?
yes, I can speak some Vietnamese. It has helped me in a lot of ways. I did start learning Vietnamese back in America from my Vietnamese friends, and one of my oldest and very good and close friends, who's friend Mr. Lam, who happened to be he is like 70, 75 years old. He kind of took me under his wing when I was back in America. And to me, I looked at him as a surrogate father. And he said to me, he said, look, I really appreciate you going to Vietnam. And within that, my last year there, he took me to a lot of the Vietnamese temples and stuff like that. He would take me out to dinner. He would speak Vietnamese to me. He would teach me Vietnamese. And then the best thing came along. He took me to a Vietnamese cultural learning center in America. And he introduced me to the faculty there. He said, he is actually going to Vietnam and I want him to learn Vietnamese. And everybody looked at him like, huh? And I'm like, huh? Because I didn't even know that's what he was doing. And next thing he said, look, I wanted to bring you here. I didn't tell you, I just wanted to bring you here to give you the opportunity to learn more. He said, because I like what you're doing. He said, if you're gonna go to my country, I want you to have the best of everything. So I actually signed up at that Vietnamese Culture Center back in Little Saigon, which is in California. And I went there for a year, for two days a week, Saturday and Sunday, 2 days a week. And I got the basics. Before that, I was actually learning online, but in all sense, everything I learned in America was just the basics, because the real true Vietnamese will happen in Vietnam. Because like I said, the dialects in Vietnam are different. The people you're speaking to from north to south to central are different. So it just depends on who you talk to. So if you don't understand how to use that kind of Vietnamese here by learning it in America, you're just learning basics. You're learning how to pronounce.
Ronnie, as we get toward the end of this interview, do you have like some recommendation for anyone who's going to Vietnam? Like, what would be your biggest piece of advice for
The
someone?
biggest piece of advice is everything you have heard about Vietnam, in terms of negativity, don't worry about it. It's not true. Just worry about getting yourself here. Secondly, I'll say learn a little bit of the language and a little bit of the culture. So at least when you get here, you can appreciate things for what they are. Don't worry about seeing all of those videos that you see on YouTube when it comes to how crazy the traffic is, how Vietnamese people are and all that stuff. That's just the culture, because you got to remember, you are a guest in this country. They're giving you opportunity to come here. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt, and to remember, you are now becoming an ambassador to yourself and to the people that you're bringing with. Because if you're coming from Italy, then you're like an ambassador. You know what I mean? So you have to be open to a lot of things, open to being there's a lot of people, especially in Vietnam. You will be bumping shoulders with people walking down the street. Maybe in America, maybe in Italy, you don't do that because people are just, oh, excuse me, and I'm very polite. Here in Vietnam, a person could be walking and bump shoulders with you and just keep on walking. It has happened to me, you know what I mean? But the thing is, you just have to understand different culture, different perspective, different attitude, you know, and learning the language, like I said, learning the language, a little bit of the language, hello, goodbye, you know, how are you doing? Just asking just the basic things, learn that. And just be open-minded. I think being open-minded to me is probably the biggest thing of them all. Being open-minded to the culture, being open-minded to the people, being open-minded to the food, being open-minded to everything that's going on around you. And don't worry about, oh, yeah, I heard Vietnamese are very racist. Oh, I heard Vietnamese people are dirty. Hey, you can eat the food on the street, but guess what? If you see, like a friend said to me, if you see a person scratching their butt and digging their nose and selling food, are you gonna go eat there? No, you're not. It's common sense, right? You got to, you have to have common sense when you eat on the street. You know, if they're very clean vendors on the street food. You just have to have a common sense about it, you know, and that's it. You're not gonna get sick. You know, people told me before I left to come here in America, oh, you won't get sick, don't eat the food. Yes, I didn't get sick. Okay. As far as the water go, don't drink the water. You know, buy bottled water. Even the Vietnamese will tell you that. You know, because they know that. But 100% true. Just be open-minded about everything. Be open-minded and allow your experience to be a blissful one, because that's the only way you will enjoy it.
Do you have like social media accounts or Facebook pages where people can kind of reach you?
Yeah, people can reach me on Facebook, on Facebook Messenger, Ronnie Defour. That's RONNIE. Defour is just DEFOUR, which is it's a French last name. Or some people say Defour or Defour. I am also on TikTok, which that's Minbao style, at Minbao style on TikTok. The other one I'm on is like I said, Messenger. I'm on Messenger. Same last name, same first name. I'm also on YouTube, which my YouTube channel is Aphotasticlyfe. But that's A for PHO. Let me say that again. I didn't know. A for PHO task TAS tick TIC life. Fantastic life all together. All right. So
okay, guys, that was Ronnie Defour in this episode, and I'll add all of his contacts down below the video. Ciao, guys. Bye, Ronnie.
All right. Nice talking to you, my man.